Welcome one and all. In today's video, I shall be discussing about multi-threading. This concept of Java is the most important concept. So basically, a program is executed in a sequential manner. That is, there will be only one point of control wherein after executing the first statement, the control will be transferred to the second statement, and from the second statement the control would be transferred to third statement, and so on. So all programs will have only one point of control. In some situations, we may need to have more than one point of control. So in such a case, if we can break up the program into several parts, several independent parts, each having a separate point of control, then each such part might be called a thread. So a program having more than one thread is called as multi-threaded program. So how we are required to create multiple threads in Java, we shall be discussing in today's lecture. Okay, so first of all, let us look at the process of creating a thread. So there are two ways in which we can create threads in Java, that is by extending the thread class. So there is a built-in class called as thread in the package lang, and there is an interface called as runnable in the same package lang. So whenever I wish to have a thread with some name, I need to define a class with that name, and this should either extend the thread class or it can also implement the runnable interface. So in either case, we are required to define a special method called as public void run. So it is in this run method that we are required to place the thread code. So either when we are following the first technique wherein we are extending the thread class, or we are following the second technique wherein we are implementing the runnable interface, in both of these cases, in both of these classes, I am required to place this particular method, that is the run method. Actually, the entire thread code should go within this run method. So now let us look at an example that demonstrates extending the thread class. So here in this program, I am defining a class called as X, which is extending the thread class. Here there is the run method. So then what am I required to do? I am required to create an object for the class. Okay, then I am required to invoke the start method. Remember, I am not invoking the run method directly, so I am instead invoking the start method through this particular object x1. Okay, that's the process. Look at the example. So there is a class called as X here, that is extending the thread class, and in this class there is a public void run method, and here within this run method I have written a very simple code wherein I am trying to use a loop, for loop, that prints numbers between 1 to 20. So this is a very simple code. So next I am defining another class called as Y. So this is also extending the thread class. Here also I have written a run method, and there is another for loop which is trying to display numbers between 30 to 50. Okay, so here I define another class called Z, which is also extending the thread class. There is a run method. There is a variable called as K, which is displaying values between 80 to 100. Okay, so now basically I have created three threads with the names X, Y and Z, each having a for loop that prints values in different ranges. And there is another class called as PGM31. So this could be any name that you wish to have it here. So this basically is written to write the main program, that is the main method. So now we call this as the main thread. The class that contains the main method is called as the main thread. So totally apart from the three threads that we defined, we also are using another class to write the main method. So therefore in this program we say there are four threads, namely x, y, z and pgm31. So here within this main method I am trying to create objects for class x. Through this object I am invoking the start method, and here also in the next statement directly, instead of writing two statements, in the first statement I am creating an object for x, then through that object I am invoking the start method. So instead of writing these two statements, I can club them up and write in a single statement, wherein I am writing only the RHS part, that is this part I am using, wherein an object is created directly but it will not have any name. The purpose is to create an object and to invoke the start method. I am required to invoke the start method at any cost. So therefore what am I trying to do here? An object is created for y, there is no name, that is not a problem. So with that object that has no name, I am invoking the start method. Then similarly in this statement I am creating an object for z, new z creates an object for z, it will not have any name, and through that object I am invoking the start method. So when we run this program, we would be getting output in different ways. You just see here, if you observe, first the control has entered the main method, then the control has entered x thread, it is displaying values between 1 to 20, then it has taken up the execution of y, then it has taken up the execution of z. You cannot assure, when you run this program, you cannot definitely assure the order of the output, because it depends on CPU scheduling. Each time when you run this program, you would be getting different outputs. I will discuss about schedulings after some time. Okay, so this is program 1. Now what I will do is, I will try to copy this program and let me try to execute this and show you for better understanding. So I am copying this program. So I will open a text editor. So here I have gedit. I'll just type text. The text editor, default text editor that is present in Ubuntu is gedit. So here I am pasting this code. So then I'll come back. There is some other part of the program which is not copied. So I will now copy this. I'll go back to my program. I would delete this text. This is not intended to come here. So then I'll go back. The program is not completely copied. I'll come back. So here it is the code. So I have copied the program. So now this program contains, this class contains the main method. So I need to save this with pgm31 name. So I shall be storing this on my desktop. I'll come to my desktop here. So on my desktop I will be saving this with the name pgm31.java. So pgm31.java. So the program got saved now. You can see the syntax has got highlighted. Okay, you can see different text, keywords and other things in different colors. So now I need to select the terminal where I need to run my program. So I'll come to the terminal. So here I have stored my program on my desktop, so I need to change the directory to desktop. So I use the cd command. So now I am on my desktop. So I need to first compile my program. I would compile my program using the javac command. So pgm31 is the name of the file. So .java is the extension. So I am compiling the program. Now the program got compiled. So now I would run my program through the command java, and here I am supposed to just give the name of the file. It should, however, not contain .java extension. So now when I hit on the enter key, this is the output that I am getting. You can now see. Let us now try to analyze this output. So here you can observe that first the control has entered a main thread, then it has taken up the execution of thread X. So it has completely executed thread X. Then it has taken up the execution of Y. It has not completely executed Y. After just displaying two values, that is, after iterating that loop for only 2 times, it has taken up the execution of the third thread, that is Z thread, and it has iterated that loop once. Then it has come back to the previous thread, that is Y, and after having iterated it for once. So therefore there is no specific order. So so this is how the program is executed. You can now observe, you are now clear that the program need not follow a specific order. So based on CPU scheduling, it will be switching between different threads. So now let us come back to our discussion. So you can stop or block a thread. In order to stop or block a thread, there are different methods, such as we have the stop method. So we then have the sleep and the yield methods. We have suspend method. Then we have the wait method. Okay, so these are the methods that are used to change the state of a thread. So before we discuss about these stopping and blocking a thread, it is very much necessary to understand the life cycle of a thread. So any thread which is created by us would undergo a different states right from its creation. So the different states which a thread can be present are newborn state, runnable state, running state, blocked state, and the dead state. So the moment I am creating an object for the thread class, so the thread enters the newborn state. So the moment we create directly an object for the thread class, or we create an object for the derived class of the thread class, that is the child of a thread class, we are creating a new thread and we are taking the thread into the newborn state. So after having invoked the start method, you saw that in the previous program we invoked the start method. The moment we invoke the start method, a thread from its newborn state enters the runnable state. And if we do not disturb it, upon complete execution, okay, a thread enters the dead state. But before that, it is possible only for us to take a thread into the runnable state. However, we cannot take a thread from runnable to running. It is not in our hands. So this transition happens only upon the CPU scheduling algorithms, based on the CPU scheduling algorithms. So now a thread which is in the running state, if we do not disturb the thread, automatically upon complete execution, thread enters the dead state. However, when we are trying to stop or block a thread, okay, that is when we are trying to interrupt a thread from being run, so it temporarily enters the blocked state, and from here it is necessary for us to take the thread back to the runnable state. It is never possible to take a thread. You can observe that there is no arrow that is directed towards the running state. So that means, so if we have disturbed a thread from the running state and we have taken the thread to the blocked state, we cannot again put it back into the running state. However, we have to place it only in the runnable state. So now let us discuss about the methods that are used to take a thread from these different states. So as I told you, the moment we are creating an object, a new thread is created and it will automatically enter the newborn state. When I invoke the start method, the thread from the newborn state enters the runnable state. Okay, and here from runnable to running, we do not have to invoke any methods. Automatically based on CPU scheduling, so the thread enters the running state. Okay, if we do not interrupt the thread from getting executed, automatically upon complete execution, thread enters the dead state. Okay, so if we want to disturb the order of execution of a running thread, we can use the stop method. So a stop method prematurely kills a thread from getting executed and takes the thread directly into the dead state. So we then have different methods such as wait method. If I have invoked the wait method, from the running state, thread enters the blocked state, and now I need to invoke another method called as the notify or the notify all method to place it back into the runnable state. Okay, so wait method takes a thread from running to blocked, and from blocked to put it back to the runnable state, I am required to use the notify method or the notify all method. Okay, then we have the suspend method. Suspend method also does the same. Suspend method brings a thread from the running state to the blocked state. Then there is a resume method which takes back the thread from the blocked to the runnable state. Okay, so then we have sleep and yield methods. So the sleep and the yield methods will take a thread from the running to blocked state temporarily for some time, and automatically the threads from the blocked state will be put back into the runnable state. So we don't have to invoke any other methods in order to put them back to the runnable state. Unlike the wait, the suspend methods, which need their other methods to put them back to the runnable state, we do not need any special methods to put the thread back to the runnable state from the blocked state. So when we are using sleep or the yield method, I will come to sleep or yield method after some time. Okay, so now let us try to make use of some of these threads. In this particular class, now I have tried to make use of the sleep method. Observe, the sleep method is being invoked. It is placed in within the try block, which is being caught by the catch block. So this when I invoke the sleep method, it would definitely cause an exception. So in order to handle that exception, this ought to get placed within the try block, and there should be a corresponding catch block also. You observe, so you observe here the loop has values, it has to iterate between 1 to 20 times. So when the value of I reaches 12, I have made the thread to sleep for some time. Okay, and that means I will be seeing a small delay when it has to display the value 12. Okay, so then in class Y, I have used, that is actually the loop has to iterate 20 times between the values 30 to 50, but when it reaches value 40, okay, I have invoked the stop method. So as I told you, stop method prematurely kills a thread. That means though the loop has to go till 50, it won't go till 50, and when the value reaches 40, it would just stop. So that means I would be getting output between 30 to 39 only. When it reaches 40, 40 is not displayed, simply the program is terminated. Okay, so a prematurely a thread can be killed by invoking the stop method. So in this class, in this program, there are two threads, x and y, and there is another thread to write the main method. So here I am trying to invoke the start method. So I am using first two lines. In the first line, I am trying to create an object for the class x. Then through that object, I am invoking the start method. So that is, I am taking the thread to the runnable state. So here, what am I trying to do? Again, I am creating an object for class y, and I am invoking the start method. That means y thread is created and it is taken from newborn state to the runnable state. So we do not have any method to take from runnable state to running automatically. Based on the CPU scheduling algorithms, one of those threads will enter, one of those threads present in the runnable state would enter the running state. Okay, so let me just write these programs here, these codes here. I would try to introduce these lines in the program. So here I would write, within the loop I would write I'll come back to the program. I am supposed to introduce the stop method. I'll come back. So this stop method I will introduce in class y within the loop. Okay, so actually it has to print values between 30 to 50, but when the value of j reaches 40, I am invoking the stop method. So this should result in values between 30 to 39 only. It should not execute the complete program. So inside z I won't write any other methods. I won't write any other I won't invoke any other methods to disturb the execution. Okay, now I'll come back to my program. Because I have made some changes, I am required to compile the program again. So I am now compiling the program. So there is sleep method, there should be some parameter. I need to write number of milliseconds. So I have written the number of milliseconds as 2000. So you will be seeing a small, very small delay when you are running this particular program. So I am making the thread to sleep for 2000 milliseconds. So now I executed the program. I compiled the program successfully. So I am now required to, you would however get these messages. They are just the warnings. You may ignore these warnings. Okay, so now I am going ahead with the execution command. So I would now strike the enter key. So let us now try to analyze what is the output. Okay, so it has executed thread x till 11 times. Then it has taken up the execution of y. Why it could not display 12? Because when it reaches 12, I have introduced a delay. So until then, which execution was taken up? The execution of y was taken up. So y got executed till 39. But here what is happening? Because I have invoked the stop method here when the value reaches 40. Okay, what it would do? It would prematurely kill the thread. So it will not continue the execution of class y. So therefore you are not able to see any values after 39. You can see only values between 30 to 39. So the moment value of y reaches 40, thread y will be killed prematurely because we have invoked the stop method. So then it has continued with the execution of z thread, and later on it has taken up the execution of class x. So here you can see the outputs between 12 to 20. So this is the program. So now let us look at priority of threads. So here we have a special method called as set priority. So this method might be used to set different priorities for a thread. I told we cannot take a thread from runnable state to running state. However, we can definitely influence, that depends on CPU scheduling. I told we can definitely influence the CPU to take up the execution of a particular thread by setting higher priority for that particular thread. Okay, so there are three priority values that I can set for my thread. So namely, maximum priority I can give, for which I need to pass this as the argument. Thread.max priority is the argument that has to be provided, and I can set minimum priority for a thread by using thread.min priority. You observe max underscore priority, all these letters should be written in capitals only. Similarly, min priority, okay, all these letters are written in uppercase only. Then the third priority is normal priority. In the previous two programs, whatever we saw, we did not set the priority. So in which case, by default, a thread is given normal priority only. It is not necessary to explicitly set the priority of a thread to norm priority, because by default, even if I do not write this statement, then also by default the thread is given normal priority. So only if you wish to give a higher priority or a lower priority to a thread, you are supposed to use max priority or min priority as the parameters to this set priority method. Okay, so now instead of writing these values, you can also choose a value between 1 and 10. So if you wish to give max priority to a thread, you may choose a value between 6 and 10. So you can choose any value between 6 and 10. So instead of typing the letters thread.max underscore priority, you can simply choose a value between the values 6 to 10. And if you wish to give minimum priority, then you can choose a value between 1 and 4. So if you choose a value, one value between 1 and 4, so automatically the thread would be given minimum priority. So if you wish to give a normal priority, you may pass value 5. So in which case normal priority will be given. So you don't have to pass this. As I told, by default any thread, even if you do not invoke the set priority method, is given normal priority only. Okay, so to explain this concept, there is this program, and here I am setting the priority of first thread, that is thread A1. Okay, A1, which is an object of, you can observe thread A. So I am setting the priority of this thread A to maximum priority. Okay, so there are more chances of A getting executed. So what I will do now, I will come back to my program. So I will try to give, so now here there are three threads X, Y and Z. I would give more priority to thread X. So chances of thread X entering the running state are more compared to the threads Y and Z. So I am setting the priority of thread X to maximum priority. So instead of writing these letters thread.max priority, I could have also given one value between 6 and 10. So let me first execute and show you how this would be behave now with. So it got compiled successively. Now I am running my program. So you can observe that in this code you see X got executed first. Okay, I ensured that because I gave more priority to X, I ensured that X got executed first before Y and Z. Okay, so now I would change this parameter. Instead of writing thread.max priority, I would choose a value between 6 and 10. The value I have chosen is 10, you may observe. So I would now save this, go back to the terminal. I would compile the program again because I have made some changes. So I would now, it got compiled, I would now run the program through the Java command. You observe now effect is the same. So it executed thread X much before executing Y and Z. Okay, so because I gave higher priority for thread X.